Okay, hello and welcome back to my channel, Stage Killers and Sound here, back today with episode 3 of the Behringer X32 edit app. Back today, so in the last episode, we looked a little bit at channels, processing and stuff. Uh, so yeah, I was about to say also for the gate release time, turn it a little more down maybe. I had it 100 millisecond, that's like 1 second. You don't want that aggressive for release time, but you want it mildly. So half a second-ish could be good, just FYI. Anywho, we're back today, and today we're going to speak a little bit more about buses and all that. As you saw in the last episode, we have our vocal IEM subgroups, buses we made here in the last episode for our artists. So our buses which they will be getting into their in-ear monitors, etc, etc. So usually on the monitors, what I'll do is that I'll go into the EQ and I'll take a low cut and set the low cut at 120. The reason for this is because in a live situation, for in-ears it would matter. Now these are in-ears, so these aren't really a good example, but say we had two monitors. Okay, let's do this. Let's set up two monitors here. So we got drum plus bass, and I'm just not gonna name a monitor because as long as they're yellow inverted or yellow, those are always either my IEMs or my monitors. And with these being the other yellow and these being named IEM, I would know which one of them is the other one. So drum and bass here we have guitar plus keys. Normally I would probably use more like 3 monitors for that, but well. So anywho, on these at least, low cut, 120 for the monitors, EQ, library, save, monitor, base, roll off. Boom, save it, pop over to the other channel, load it, boom, done. Channel. Guitar and keys, drums and bass. That's also a thing. If you go up here, you can change which icon the channel has. So here, let's put some IEM packs on the IEM channels. So there we go. Then here is our effects buses. Let's bring those down, shall we? Now I like to use green for my effects. Just me. I like using my colors. Oops. So my first effects will pretty much all the time be my drum reverb. So this will be a reverb for say the snare and some of the toms. Then we got the instrument reverb. Reverb. This will usually be a plate reverb that I have on some guitars, maybe acoustic guitar, keys in some instances, definitely on some percussion. That's not normal drums. Then we have my reverb, which is my normal reverb for my vocals, and then we got my delay. Now, my effects we set in here. So these 4 effects are pretty much always going to be coming from here. So, for drums I use ambience. For my hall I use hall reverb. Stereo delay for my delay. And for my other instrument, as said, I use a plate reverb. So, this one is going to be on my bus 15. Because that's my vocal channel. Or my vocal reverb. My delay is on number 16. My instrument is on my number 14. And my drum is on my number 13, which is already on. I usually just leave how the ambience and the hall reverb is set alone. I go in on my stereo delay, make sure it's on a stereo feed. I run a high cut on it to about 122 Hz because remember we cut our subs off at 122, so we do not need anything coming into 122 Hz. And besides, vocals can't even go that low, or well, they probably can, but like usually that's not needed in any form of those. High cut, just leave it maxed out. Feed low cut 120, and then feed left I put to 50, feed right I put to 50. Make sure factor left right is there. I drop my offset left to right to 0, and then this one, the time, I use my assign set A to tap my time for the assign set A. And then my plate reverb, also just leave it as it is what I usually do. So there is these effects. Now we have some other effects. Now, what I'll usually put here is a wave designer. This would normally be sidechain inserted on channel 17 and channel 18. Be inserted for my sub kick and my normal kick. And then also here we have some de-essers, which I would maybe use for vocals if needed. We got some secondary compressors, precision limiter, stereo enhancer. Then we have a stereographic EQ. This is one I'll usually put on my main left right and insert it for doing a room correction. So we can put a stereographic EQ there for doing a room correction. What else can I put in here as an example? Let's just say a fair layer compressor. Let's just put a classic fair layer compressor on, say, 17 and 8. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. You can't do that because of that. Now, what I can do is make a drum mix bus. So I can make let's make a stereo drum mix bus. Drum bus left or right, and then I'll just rename this to drum bus left. And then I'm going to go onto my config and I'm going to stereo link those, and then I can put this one in on bus 11 and bus 12, insert it, and then I can put a global compression on the entire drum kit with a classic stairwave compressor, for example. That's one thing I also could do. Or I could put guitar amps here or whatever. I'll go more into detail of what each individual effect and whatnot does. Like the reverb, ambience effects, and the stereo delay effects probably already makes obvious sense from before. They delay, echo, and reverb, echo. Yeah. Although I'll go more into depth about like the wave designer and all of that later on down the road. Probably more into those when I get the actual X32 compact that I can play back a multi-track and actually show you guys what they sound like. So that's a little more on the effect side of things, and then we have our subgroups. So we can do subgroups, for example, here. We can also do 2 subgroups for say our vocal bus left, vocal bus right, and then I can stereo link those so we get the stereo pair. There's my effects. So say here, for example, for vocal bus left, I would probably do more for the sidechain effects. I would probably do a stereo de-esser for bus 7 and bus 8. To do a general compression. Of course, here again, this depends also on, because if it's male and female separately, I would put 2 different channels for that. But just for the sake of if we could do that, and then I would go directly in on the channel itself and maybe do some light compression and maybe do my global gating. If I don't want to do gating on each individual channel, if the levels are about the same, I could do a global gate on the bus instead. So that's one way to use the mix buses pretty effectively for more than just effects and lead vocals. Of course, if we are many people that's playing and we need more monitors, I will go monitors above mix buses. And just do a little more work myself with individual EQ and individual compression. But other than that, having mix buses is a nice way to do it. And also you can limit it down to only using 1 bus for each individual thing. And this works fine. There's nothing directly wrong with this. Just know that if you do that, they will get mono. Personally, for me, it doesn't matter that much to me, personally, that they're mono. Because they still sound fine even though they're mono. But if you're very picky about having that full stereo image, if you have something that is stereo linked, like for example guitars, then I would recommend using that. Then you can use a stereo pair like this. So that's a little bit about buses. In the next episode, we'll be taking a look at the matrix section and the